You ever watch a man walk into a room and make it quieter, just by existing? That's exactly what happened that Tuesday morning at Claiborne County Courthouse Courtroom 4C under the reign of Judge Martin Delaney, a man so rigid his tie probably stood up by itself. He'd been on the bench for 23 years, and in all that time no one had dared challenge his authority until a stranger walked in and did it without saying a damn word. He wasn't wearing a suit, no badge, no clipboard, just a tucked-in charcoal shirt, well-worn slacks, and this calmness. Like the kind of calm that doesn't come from being unbothered, but from surviving storms big enough to change your bones. Judge Delaney barely looked up at first, but the moment he saw that man sit down in the back row, far left corner, straight-backed, silent, something shifted. Delaney paused, eyes narrowed, fingers stopped tapping. "You there," he said. "You think that's proper attire for my courtroom?" The man didn't flinch, didn't explain, didn't apologize. He just looked at Delaney, still unreadable, and said 4 words. "I'm here to listen." Delaney lost it, kicked him out. "Loitering," he said. "No legal business, no presence." And the man left. No drama, no fight, just that same stillness, like he'd expected it, like he knew the weight of a room that's never seen him properly, and probably never tried. But what no one in that courtroom knew, not Delaney, not the bailiff, not even the public defender in the front row, was that the man they just humiliated was Major Julian Carter, recently appointed chairman of the State Judicial Review Board. And Delaney? He was the first case on that morning's docket. See, Julian wasn't always this composed. Back in the day, he was fire. Rough edges, big opinions, young and angry, until the Army broke him down and built him back up. Infantry Special Operations and eventually JAG Corps. But before that, before the medals and bars, he was just a 25-year-old law student at Eastern Ridge University, framed for theft by a classmate who didn't like seeing someone like him leading the moot court team. Laptop went missing, finger pointed at Julian, and the school folded on him in less than 48 hours. No trial, no defense. Just a quote from then Judge Delaney. No remorse, no future. It broke him. He lost his scholarship, his housing, his reputation, slept in his car, picked up night shifts unloading trucks, got jumped more than once one time right behind a diner in Phoenix. Guy hit him with a pipe and took his shoes. He still wears the scar on his ribs. But instead of staying broken, he enlisted. And let me tell you, the military doesn't care where you came from, but it damn well shapes where you're going. Sand, blood, ice baths, burpees in the desert while your hands tear open on gravel. And discipline. Not the loud kind. The kind that turns rage into focus. Julian learned how to wait, how to hold pain without letting it rot. And above all, he learned how to spot men like Delaney, men who confuse power with wisdom and courtrooms with kingdoms. So when he walked back into that courthouse an hour later, through the staff entrance no less, it wasn't to argue, it was to observe, to see if the man who broke him back then had changed, or if he was still swinging the gavel like it was a sword. Upstairs, behind a sealed oak door, the review board meeting was already underway. Attorneys, clerks, 2 ex-judges. Julian walked in slow, calm, took the seat at the head of the table, said nothing. It was Michael Reed, the board's loudest skeptic, who cracked first. "You disappeared all morning, Carter," he sneered. "You think that's standard protocol?" Julian looked at him. "I was watching," he said. "Watching what?" Reed scoffed. "You've already got the transcripts. The audio. What more were you hoping to find?" Julian leaned back just a touch. "Sometimes you learn more from a man's silence than his testimony." Reed rolled his eyes. "That sounds poetic, but this isn't story hour." Julian stayed still, then said it, the thing that cracked the room like glass under heat. "Judge Delaney presided over my case 28 years ago. I was 25, wrongly accused, convicted, lost everything." A hush fell over the room like a curtain. Linda Moran, a sharp civil rights attorney sitting to his right, paused mid-scribble. Reed's smirk died halfway across his face. Julian went on. "He didn't recognize me this morning. I saw it in his eyes. But I remember him. Every word, every look. And yes, I have reason to be angry. But I'm not." Linda blinked. "Then why are you here?" Julian didn't miss a beat. "Because no man should hold the gavel if he can't bear the weight of it." Outside the boardroom, the story leaked, fast. Someone from the courthouse staff, maybe a clerk or a guard, tipped off a local reporter. Within hours, it was everywhere. State judge called out for past bias by Oversight. Chairman with personal ties. Social media lit up. Twitter was on fire. TikTok had clips with dramatic music and courtroom reenactments. Hashtags like #GavelCheck and #DelaneyDown started trending. The Sheriff's Department issued a statement. We respect the independence of judicial review and support transparency in all proceedings. The mayor tried to play both sides. We're shocked and also confident in the process. But it was the public reaction that split down the middle. Half the town said Julian should recuse himself, that it was personal, that he couldn't be objective. The other half, they said hell no, that he'd earned that seat more than anyone, that his pain didn't disqualify him. It proved he knew what the stakes were. And in the middle of that firestorm stood Deputy Nate Ellis, a local cop who'd seen the courtroom incident and later told the press, the judge didn't just dismiss a man, he dismissed a story. Nate got suspended 2 days later for unauthorized comments. His cruiser was keyed, his mailbox filled with threats, but he didn't back down. Julian visited him that same evening. They didn't say much, just stood on the porch watching the sky. And after a while, Nate said, "You gonna finish what you started?" Julian's answer was barely louder than the wind. "Not sure yet." Because now came the hard part. He had to decide. Stay on the board, see this through, possibly end Delaney's career, or step aside and prove he wasn't out for revenge. He'd carried the past for nearly 3 decades, every scar, every shame, every whisper of, "You don't belong here." Now the world was watching, and everyone wanted to know, would he swing back or rise above? That night, sitting alone in his kitchen, Julian opened the old case file one last time, the yellowed transcript, the faded photo of him in handcuffs, the statement from his public defender that was never entered into evidence. He read it all, then shut the folder, tight, final, and whispered, what would justice look like if it had memory? The next morning, the courtroom was packed, not for a trial, but for a closed-door disciplinary hearing that had somehow turned into a public spectacle. News crews lined the courthouse steps. Commentators on both sides screamed over each other on live streams. Protesters outside waved signs. Justice has a memory. And no vengeance in the bench. Inside, Judge Martin Delaney sat stiffer than ever, his robe sharp, his jaw locked, his eyes dodging every lens in the room. But behind all that pomp, he looked small. Not because of anything Julian had said yet, but because of what he hadn't. Julian Carter sat at the opposite table, calm as ever. He didn't posture, didn't puff his chest, just laid out his folder, opened it, and began. This, he said, holding up a page, is the arrest transcript from 28 years ago. The officer said he didn't think someone like me could afford the car I was sitting in. The room shifted, gasps, mutters. Julian turned a page. This is a letter from my public defender. He never got access to the security footage that would have cleared me. It was suppressed. Another page. And this, he said, lifting a creased, sun-faded photo, was me. The day Delaney ruled. No evidence, no appeal, no defense. He looked straight at the judge. You didn't just take my future. You convinced the world I never had one to begin with. Delaney's hands twitched just a bit, but enough to see. Julian leaned in, voice still even. I don't need you to remember me. But I need this room to understand this isn't just about me. He turned to the panel's 6 members, stone-faced, listening. This is about everyone who got flattened by the system while the rest of us were told to stay quiet. And maybe the worst part is that silence became the norm, like it was expected. Someone in the gallery sniffled. A woman clutched a tissue. A young man in the back mouthed, "Thank you." Then came the counterattack. Michael Reed, still skeptical, still sharp, stood. "Mr. Carter," he said, "given your personal history, how can we trust you're here for justice and not retaliation?" That's when the room really tensed. Julian didn't blink. You think justice can only come from people untouched by pain? Reed hesitated. Julian kept going. If that's the standard, then nobody in this room's qualified. We all carry something. I'm not here to settle a score. I'm here to hold a mirror. And then in a twist no one saw coming, Judge Delaney stood, for the first time, without prompting. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded letter, hands trembling just enough to betray the moment. I used to think justice was about rules, Delaney said, voice tight. And maybe it is. But I see now it's also about recognition. And I didn't see you, Carter. Not then. A pause. But I do now. And just like that, he walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't make a speech. Just left. The panel didn't chase him. Because honestly, what could top that? Later that day, Julian was offered the interim Chief Justice position, an opportunity that just a year ago would have been unthinkable. He didn't accept it. He didn't decline it either. He simply said, "Let me think." Because the truth was, not everything needed to end with a bang. Some endings just needed silence. But silence didn't mean surrender. That week, his phone rang nonstop: interviews, speaking requests, angry voicemails, tearful strangers thanking him. A national legal podcast ran a segment titled "The Man Who Made the Gavel Blink." CNN picked up the story. Fox ran a counterpiece. Twitter was a war zone. Some called him a hero. Others said he undermined the system. One night, while taking out his trash, a stranger in a hoodie walked past and whispered, "You should have buried him." He didn't turn around. But 2 nights later, someone left flowers on his doorstep. A note tucked inside read, "My brother was in Delaney's court. You gave us closure." And in the midst of it all, there was Officer Nate Ellis, the deputy who spoke out. He got reassigned to desk duty. Someone slashed his tires. And one morning, his wife found a dead bird in their mailbox. Julian visited again, this time with reporters. He stood beside Nate, in front of cameras, said justice doesn't work unless people are willing to lose comfort to tell the truth. The governor gave a press conference 2 days later, promised reforms, promised more oversight. But Julian knew better than to put faith in speeches. He knew change didn't come from above. It came from pressure, below. And that pressure, it was building. In the following weeks, the Judicial Review Board started reopening past cases, the Delaney docket, as they called it. Dozens of names, dozens of lives. Some had moved on, others hadn't. Julian showed up to every single hearing, didn't speak, just watched. And when asked why he kept doing it, he said quietly, "Because justice isn't just about verdicts. It's about being seen." He didn't take the big office, didn't wear the robe. Instead, he went back to teaching. Small classroom, community college, fluorescent lights that buzzed when it rained. And every Tuesday afternoon, he'd write the same question on the chalkboard. What does justice owe the broken? His students, mostly working adults, single parents, veterans, never had simple answers. But they showed up, every week, every one of them, watching him. One day, a kid raised his hand and asked, "So what happened to Delaney?" Julian smiled. Sometimes, silence is its own sentence. And maybe that was enough. Or maybe it wasn't. You tell me, should he have forgiven or gone further? Let us know what you think in the comments. Would you have done the same? Justice or revenge? Where's the line? If this story moved, you share it. Let more people see what real accountability looks like. And don't forget to subscribe, because next time, the gavel might fall harder. And this time, someone will be watching.